Hello and welcome to Phoenix Technology Solutions. My name is Vincent Zeska. I'm going to be your instructor for today's Introduction to Linux course. Now before we begin, I want to go over some emergency procedures. Should the fire alarm go off, you guys are just going to go right back out the way you came in, and on the left and right hand sides of the hallways you're going to find the stairwells. So please, if the fire alarm's going off, don't take the elevators. If anyone needs to use the restroom at any point, those will be back out the double doors and the right side hallway. The codes for those are up here. You don't need to ask me to go, just go ahead and excuse yourself. We're all adults here. So, who has experience with Linux before coming into this class? Anybody? Go ahead and put your hand up. Okay. What's your name and what's your experience level with Linux?
My name is William, and I just kind of use it as a personal user. Use Arch Linux.
Okay, cool. That's great. So nice to meet you. If you don't mind, as we're getting into the course, if you're up for it, if you don't mind helping out the other students as we're getting into some of the more complex command terminal stuff, as I'm going around and explaining something, if your neighbor's having a problem, feel free to help them. I find it's always helpful explaining something to someone else, and that's just going to reinforce your knowledge. So if you're up for that, that'd be awesome. So, for the rest of you who say you've never used Linux before, how many people in here have a smartphone? Everybody, right? No shame if you don't. How many people are using an Android smartphone? All you guys are already using Linux. Android is actually a variant of Linux. So, it doesn't seem so intimidating now, right? So what exactly is Linux? To put it simply, Linux is an operating system. An operating system is what allows a computer's hardware to interface with the applications that we as end users are using on a day-to-day basis. So those applications being things like our web browsers or this PowerPoint application, for example. Now I want you guys to know that Linux is not Unix. In fact, it was created in almost direct opposition to Unix, because when Unix first came out, it was open source, it still is open source, but as companies started adding their own changes to it, it became more and more proprietary, and it was harder and harder for everyday people like you and me to access. So, this was created by Linus Torvalds, and he wrote all the code from scratch. So, Linux, by that token, is actually free open source software. We'll be getting into that in a moment. Another cool thing, fun fact for if any of you guys play Jeopardy, maybe you'll get a quick answer from it. It's actually written in a C programming language, and this is cool because that means it's machine portable. So it's not stuck to any specific hardware. If it can compile C, you can run Linux on it. So, one of the most important things I need to talk to you guys about before we actually dig into Linux is what open source actually is. A lot of people are under the impression that open source means free. This is really going to make or break your career if you don't realize that not all open source software is free. There's open source software out there where you're free to download it, you're free to use it. The minute you put it into use in a corporate environment, you owe somebody a licensing fee. So if you were to do that inadvertently, you guys that are thinking about becoming Linux administrators, you really need to know that. Actually, if you're working in IT in general, you're going to need to know that because you could wind up having legal issues, losing your job, costing your company thousands and thousands of dollars. So keep that in mind as you're getting into the world of open source software. Linux is actually under a GPL license. I'm not going to dig too much into that because I want to get you guys hands-on with Linux today. But there is this website here where you can go ahead and read over all of that if anyone's interested in it. But the important part being that with GPL software, it's free to download, copy, distribute, and modify. And the key thing here being, with Unix, remember I said the more and more people were changing it, it became proprietary. With a GPL license, you have to redistribute it under that GPL license. So it can't become proprietary to somebody else over time. Now, another quick thing, if anyone has ever tried to download Linux, you just go to Google, you type download Linux, you're going to find that there's all different kinds of Linux out there. So what you want to decide before you actually go ahead and install Linux is what do you want your computer to do? If you want a web server, you don't want to download Linux Mint. you don't want to download Kali Linux. Those are two popular variants of Linux. So for our purposes today, we're actually going to be working with Linux Mint because it's very similar to Windows, and I think a lot of you will be very comfortable with that. How many people in here use Windows on a daily basis? It's going to look real familiar to you. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull up Linux Mint for you guys. Does anybody have any questions up to this point? Anything at all? No? Okay, great.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Suzy Linux, is that still popular?
That, I'll have to look into that and let you know, but I do believe, yeah, there's still a lot of people using that. I know some of the more popular variants right now are Fedora, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Mint, Kali Linux, and Arch Linux are very, very popular. And yeah, I do believe SUSE Linux is very popular still.
Okay.
But definitely, I'll get you some more information on that during the break. And
Sounds
then
good.
I'll let you know. Okay, so is this look familiar to anybody? Windows users? Looks pretty similar, right? In Windows, a lot of the times when you're going to open applications and things like that, you're going to go down to the start bar, of course. That was a huge complaint people had with Windows 8.1, where the start bar go, how to navigate around. Linux Mint is just like the older versions of Windows, and actually like Windows 10 too. So here you'll find all the kinds of applications that you would find in a Microsoft distribution, but most of these are coming for free. So you can access all your Office applications, you can go into graphics, and it actually has something that's very similar to Adobe Photoshop, but it's open source, it's free, the GIMP photo editor, if anyone's familiar with that. And some things are actually a little bit easier to do in Linux Mint than in like Windows 7, for example, because you have your backup utility right there. You don't have to navigate through control panel and all that kind of stuff. So my goal here right now is to keep you guys from getting too intimidated about what Linux is and show you how familiar it is. So if anybody has any questions about anything, feel free to just raise your hand at any time. Now, the Linux file system is hierarchical. What that means is that essentially in the file system you're going to have, for example, your documents, and beneath your documents, if you have another folder, then that's going to be, say, college documents, and then you'll find beneath that files, you might find more documents. Basically, they stack on top of each other. That's actually exactly like Windows is. It's the same kind of setup. Some of the key differences you need to be aware of is that Linux is case sensitive. For you guys that are used to Windows, have you ever named something? Let's say you were going to name a file File 1. We'll keep it simple. And you've done that, you saved it a few months ago, and now you want to save another file in the same folder, and you happen to name it File 1 again. What happens? Windows is going to yell at you, right? It's going to say, hey, this file already exists, what do you want to do? With Linux, and that's regardless of case. Windows is case insensitive. So, let's say the first file you named like this, File 1, and the second one, capital F, but otherwise it's the same. In Linux, it's going to let you do that, and you need to be aware of that, because when you start naming files and you get things that are very similar like this, it's very easy to delete something you didn't need to delete, share something you didn't need to share. You can run yourself into trouble very quickly. Linux also doesn't care about file extensions. So what that means is, like with Microsoft, when you're running the PowerPoint, it's always going to save it as whatever you name it, and it's going to add .ppt on the end. With Microsoft Word, it's going to add .doc, .docx. Linux doesn't care about any of that.
So you would have to add your own extensions, or extensions don't even matter?
No, Linux expects you to know what application that file is going to use, and then you just open that file with that application. So you don't have, right. Yeah, so you could add a file extension to it, but Linux is largely going to ignore that. Now, my main goal for you guys today, besides getting you comfortable with the idea of Linux, is to get you started in the terminal. And I'm going to be going back and forth between this visual of the file system here, what you all are probably used to, and the terminal, so that you can see what's actually going on a scale that you're used to working with computers. So, I'm going to go ahead and clear off our topics because we're already down to command terminal pretty quickly, and this is going to be the meat of the course. So, when you log into a Linux system, you're always going to start in your home directory, and that's going to be root, the first forward slash represents root. I'll get into root in a moment. And then you're going to have home, and then you're going to have your username. On this particular device, the username happens to be Mint because it's just a stock installation of Mint. I haven't changed anything because I want you guys to see what it looks like the minute you download it. So, when you're looking at this box, you're looking in /home, /mint. And again, the first / is root. Root is essentially the top of the hierarchy. If you have access to root, you can change anything on the system at all you want to. As a regular user, you're not going to be able to get out of your user file. So, on the command terminal, over here, has anyone used Microsoft DOS or command line in Windows? Anybody at all? Okay, good. Some of the commands I'm going to teach you guys actually are compatible with Windows as well. Not all of them, but if you're familiar with that environment, it's going to help you out. So, what you're seeing here, this little $sign is telling me that I can enter a command in. Not all versions of Linux will have that $sign, some will have something like a hashtag, but we're going to be working with Mint. So when you see that $sign, it's telling you can enter a command. So to find out where I'm at, I'm going to type in lowercase pwd. Can you guys all see that okay? So pwd and hit enter. And now I see my home directory I just told you guys about. /home, /mint. So if I want to see what's below that being back here in the File Explorer, you have desktop, documents, downloads, etc. Back over here, and let me write it down for you guys real quick. And I'll be giving you a handout for all of these, so if you don't feel like writing them all down, that's okay. So pwd is print working directory. This is the command, this is what it does. So, to see where I can go from there, I'm going to use the list command. That's ls. Again, lowercase l, lowercase s. That's list. So, type it in and just hit enter. And now you see all the same things that were back over on the graphical interface. Your desktop, documents, downloads, music, all that good stuff that you're used to seeing. Now, does anybody know how you can change into one of these files? You people that are used to DOS, you can probably take a guess at that. Or Bill, your experience with Linux, you probably know.
Yeah, the cd command stands for change director, and then you can just type in one of the directories.
Exactly. That's great. Okay, so let's try that. CD, and I'm going to make a mistake here. I want you guys to tell me what it is. Documents.
Lowercase d.
Exactly. Fantastic. So, because I put this lowercase
Surprised
d,
myself sometimes.
because I put this lowercase d, when I hit enter, it's going to say there's no such file or directory. What this is saying, the bash, you don't need to worry about too much. That's the version of terminal I'm using. And then this cd documents is what I typed in. And its response to that is this doesn't exist. So when I see that, I look at what I typed and I say, oh, I forgot the capital D, so try that again. And now we have changed into the downloads folder. See how it is added downloads before the $sign? That's how you know you're in the downloads folder. So if I want to go back one level to where I came from, and let me add CD up here for you guys real quick. If I want to go back one level, can anybody tell me how I do that? Again, this is very similar to Microsoft DOS, if you guys are familiar.
Is it CD//? Or before
Let's try that. In some operating systems, you can do CD// will get you to root, but let's try CD//. That's actually taking you all the way to, let's find out, PWD. We're in //. So,
wherever that is.
so you taught me something today. So let's head back home. So CD// home/min. And I forgot my space. I heard you call that out, good catch. So PWD again, am I in the right place? Yes, I'm in home/min. So you can see when you're running with administrative privileges, doing things like that, you can get lost in, you can mess up something pretty quickly. You guys' machines will not have root privilege, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, create a new document. Put it in there, let's name it doc1. And now let's put some text in it. We'll say, dogs are awesome. Minimize that for now. So, I'm in my home directory, and with the commands I've taught you guys, can anyone tell me how can I get to the documents now? What would I type in? ls is going to tell me where I can go. That's the list. So if I type ls, it's showing me where I can go.
So you want to go where?
So I want to go to documents.
So it would be CD document.
Exactly. So CD documents. And now that we're in there, again, the ls command will show us where can we go from here. So ls, and I have doc1. If you want to see what's inside doc1, can you use the cd command to see that? Show of hands, does anybody think you can? Right, great. So, to get into that, you can use a text editor, but that's a little more advanced. We'll get into that after a break later on. So what you can use is a command called cat. This actually has a couple uses for our purposes right now. I'm just going to show you the most basic one. So cat can show you the file contents. So I know it's called doc1, and I'm inside of the documents folder. So all I have to do is type in cat, all lowercase, space, and doc1. And here I see dogs are awesome. So at this point, let me take a minute and explain to you guys, why do you care about the terminal? Because at this point you're seeing, well, you know, I could just be using the graphic interface to use all this, and it's much easier, right? Well, for those of you who are interested in being an administrator one day, you're probably not going to have this graphical interface. The reason being that it's taking up hardware resources and it's running extra processes that could lead to vulnerabilities, which means that a hacker could get into your system and wreak havoc on it. So you don't want that. Beyond that, there are also some advantages in terms of being able to perform tasks very quickly. Let's say you have a pretty complicated file system going on, and every Friday you want to back up some specific files. And they're pretty scattered about. So if you're trying to use the graphical user interface, then you're going to have to navigate around to each one and back it up to wherever you want it to go. While with the terminal, you can actually use all of this that you've learned and all the future commands that we're going to get into as a programming language. So you can use these commands and make what's called a script. So what that means is that you can type out the commands to back up all those files. Let's say it's 50 files, 100 files. It's going to take you an hour or more to back all these up if you're going and doing it individually. Well, by writing out all these commands ahead of time, save it in a file, and then executing that script, you can actually back up all those files as quick as the computer can do it, and as quick as you can type out that one command to execute the script. So that's the kind of power of the terminal.
So how do we go back one folder? I gave you the wrong answer last time.
Oh, right, so if you want to go back just one folder, now I'm in Documents, and I want to go back to...
Oh, it's CD dot dot or something.
Exactly.
Like that. Okay.
CD dot dot. In DOS, you can just type CD dot dot, no space. But Linux is a little more particular about it. They like CD, a space, and then dot dot. So let's try it. And now we use pwd to see where we are again. And we're back one directory from where we were. So we'll actually add this up here. That's part of the CD. So CD dot dot, go up one directory. Now you could also do that by giving the absolute file path. So you could also say cd space /home/min. So from here, does anybody have any questions so far? Have I lost anybody? Okay, great. So at this point, let's make a new directory. The way you're going to do that